My fiancé texted, "I'm not in love with you anymore." I replied, "Thanks for the heads up." Then I called off the wedding, sold my dress, and left town. Hello everyone. Before we start today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thank you very much. Now let's begin the video. Hello people. My name is Hannah Troutman and I was 29 years old when my life broke apart in 7 words. It was just after 10 o'clock at night. I was sitting on the edge of our bed, the one Arthur and I had spent an entire Saturday assembling together. My phone lit up and there it was. "I'm not in love with you anymore." No call. No, "We need to talk." Just a message as cold and clinical as a surgeon's scalpel. It felt like a drive-by shooting of the heart. I stared at it once, twice. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard, aching to send 100 angry, desperate replies, but the truth was simple. His message wasn't an invitation to a discussion. It was a verdict. So I typed back, "Thanks for the heads up." Then I set my phone to airplane mode and dropped it on the nightstand. The silence in the apartment became unbearable. The only sound was the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, indifferent to the fact that my world had just fractured. Oddly, I didn't feel rage. Not yet. What I felt was cold, detached, like I was watching my own life from the outside. A strange clarity washed over me. This wasn't about building a future anymore. It was about dismantling one with as little collateral damage as possible. The next morning I didn't storm into action. I brewed coffee, sat on the balcony, and watched the city wake up. My hands trembled around the mug, but my mind kept repeating the same phrase: damage assessment first. So I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet, titled Project Disentanglement. I listed everything: shared bank accounts, deposits, vendors for the wedding that was supposed to happen in 3 months, and with every entry my stomach dropped further. The venue, $15,000 deposit, non-refundable. The caterer, a kind man named Mr. Henderson, who agreed to refund, have small mercy. The photographer, merciless. My time is booked, deposit is non-negotiable. The florist, apologetic but firm. Too close to the date. By the end of the week, the total loss stood just over $28,000. My money. I had insisted on paying for everything. A gesture of love, security, partnership. Now it felt like the punchline of "I packed my things." First clothes, books, work equipment. It took 2 days. Arthur's belongings I left untouched. Vindictiveness didn't interest me. Closure did. The engagement ring, a custom design I'd thought symbolized forever, I carried to a jeweler. He offered me about 30% of what I paid. I slid it across the counter without a word. The money wasn't the point. Erasing the symbol was. The dress was harder. A $7,000 gown hanging in our closet like a ghost of the future. I took photos, close-ups of the lace, the shimmer of the fabric, and listed it on a wedding resale site. Title: custom gown never worn. Fiancé had a change of heart. Maybe it would sell, maybe not, but at least it was no longer just hanging there haunting me. And finally, the apartment. Our lease carried a hefty break fee. When I called the landlord, he didn't sugarcoat things. "Find someone to take over immediately, and I'll waive it. Otherwise you're paying out." So the hunt for a new tenant began. And all the while Arthur's silence stretched like a noose. Until the text started. "Can we talk? You're being so dramatic. My parents are worried. Don't make this worse." The sheer entitlement was the only thing sharp enough to cut through my numbness. He had detonated our life together, and yet somehow I was the one being dramatic. I saved each message into a folder marked Arthur. Something told me I might need proof later. And then, just as I was trying to hold the pieces of my life together, the phone rang. His father. "Victor, Hannah darling." His voice oozed false concern. "I know Arthur can be impulsive, but you two need to talk this through. A real woman doesn't run away from a little pre-wedding jitters." I ended the call without a word. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness anymore. For the first time since that 7-word text, I felt the faintest spark of something else. Not grief. Not love. Anger. And that was when I realized Arthur's message had only been the opening shot. The real battle was just beginning. The first thing I sold wasn't the dress. It wasn't the ring, either. It was the idea of us. Every item I touched in that apartment was proof of a promise Arthur had already broken. The engagement ring had been easy enough. Cold metal pawned at a fraction of its worth. The dress was harder, but at least it could serve someone else's dream. But the apartment, that was the real anchor. I spent 3 days interviewing prospective tenants. Couple students, a young professional with wide eyes who clearly couldn't afford the rent. Finally, I found them. Mark and Sarah, newlyweds eager and relieved to find a ready-to-move-in place. They signed within a week. The relief I felt was almost physical. like unclenching a fist I hadn't realized I'd been holding. That's when Arthur's text shifted tone. "You can't just shut me out, Hannah. We need closure. Don't be so cold. My dad says you're handling this poorly." Every word dripped with the same breathtaking arrogance, as if I had broken off the engagement, as if I had humiliated him in front of both families. One night he even tried humor. "Still have my blue hoodie, keep it. It looks better on you." I didn't respond. Not to him. Not to any of it. I simply dragged each message into the Arthur folder and filed it away like evidence in a trial that hadn't started yet. Then came the phone call from Victor again. His voice was firmer this time. Less honey, more steel. "Hannah, enough of this nonsense. You've embarrassed us long enough. Arthur made a mistake, he admits it. A real woman forgives pre-wedding jitters. Do you want to be remembered as vindictive? Is that the reputation you're aiming for?" The audacity nearly made me laugh. Nearly. Instead I said nothing. Just silence. Let him hear the void. And then I hung up. That night, sitting on the bare mattress, our bed already dismantled and boxed, I stared out at the city lights and whispered to myself, I'm not the one who should be ashamed. The dismantling wasn't just physical. It was emotional. Every cut I made, canceling a deposit, packing a box, listing an item online, was me severing another tie. But the more I pulled away, the more Arthur tried to pull me back. It started with pleading, "We need to talk. Don't do this to us." Then guilt, "My mom can't sleep. You owe our families an explanation." And finally anger, "This is not how a mature adult handles things. You're acting irrational." The irony of being called irrational by a man who ended our engagement with a single text wasn't lost on me. Still, I ignored him. I focused on logistics. One by one the threads tying me to Arthur were cut. But then, just as I was breathing again, a new thread arrived. This time not from Arthur, but from his father. Victor left me a voicemail that night. His tone was sharp, almost venomous. "You can't run away from responsibility, Hannah. You left Arthur in a mess without a home, without support. If you think you can just walk away, you're mistaken. We will pursue this legally if we must. You owe him, remember that." I replayed it twice, my jaw clenched tighter each time. And in that moment I realized Arthur's betrayal wasn't just about a broken heart. It was about power, control, ownership. And his family wasn't going to let me go without a fight. The dismantling of my life had just reached its second phase. And the next strike I suspected wouldn't come through a text. It would come pounding at my door. It was a Saturday afternoon when the knock came. Not at my apartment, but at my brother Roger's place where I'd been crashing until the lease was settled. Roger's voice carried through the phone when he called me low and sharp. "Lena, you need to get here. Now. They're outside." My blood ran cold. By the time I pulled up to his house, my stomach was twisted into knots. And there they were, Arthur and his father, Victor, standing on the sidewalk like they owned the place. Roger was at the door, arms folded, blocking their way. The second Arthur spotted me, his expression shifted, eyes wet, shoulders slumped, playing the victim. "Hannah," he said, voice cracking on my name. "Your brother won't let us in." I stood my ground at the bottom of the driveway because you weren't invited. Victor took a step forward, jaw tight, his voice booming with rehearsed outrage. "This is appalling, Hannah. You've humiliated our family. One impulsive mistake and you're ready to destroy everything. Do you know what people are saying about you, that you've lost your mind?" My laugh came out brittle, hollow. Ending an engagement with a midnight text isn't a mistake. It's a decision. Or was the mistake that you got caught, Arthur? For a flicker, just a flicker, I saw it. Guilt. A flash of something raw in Arthur's eyes before it hardened into indignation. "What is that supposed to mean?" He snapped too quickly. "I didn't have proof." "Not yet. Only the gut-deep certainty that I'm not in love with you anymore wasn't the full story. But proof or not, the outcome was the same." "It means we're done," I said flatly. Victor's face flushed crimson. "She made one mistake and you're throwing her entire life away. Do you have any idea what this will do to our family's reputations?" There it was again. The word. Reputation. It wasn't about Arthur's choices or my pain. It was about appearances. About saving face. Arthur's voice broke into a whine. "Desperate now. I can't afford a new place on my own right away, Lena, and I can't move everything myself. You have to help me." I shook my head, heart hammering, but voice steady. "No, Arthur, I don't. You're an adult. This is the direct consequence of your choice." I turned toward the door, but Victor's voice snapped after me like a whip. "We'll speak to our lawyer. You can't just abandon him like this." The threat was so absurd I almost laughed, almost. But instead I went inside, shut the door, and let the silence swallow their shouts. They lingered outside for another 10 minutes, shadows shifting across the curtains, before finally leaving. The next day I hired a moving company to pack the rest of Arthur's belongings. I even paid for the first month of a storage unit and mailed the key to Victor's office via certified mail. Clean. Decisive. I thought that would be the end of it, but endings I was learning rarely arrive when you expect them. Because just when I believed I had cut the last tie, Arthur's cousin Leah appeared, and with her the nightmare took on a new, sharper edge. The call came the morning after I'd finally allowed myself to breathe. "Hi Hannah, this is Mark, the new tenant. We have a problem." The tone in his voice told me everything before he even explained. "There's someone in the apartment. She says she lives here." My stomach dropped. "What's her name?" He hesitated. "Leah. She says she's Arthur's cousin." I closed my eyes. The name alone was enough to make my pulse spike. Leah, Arthur's cousin, the perennial couch surfer of the family. The one who never had a place of her own but always had an excuse. It all clicked at once. The untouched boxes. The way Arthur had dragged his feet about clearing his stuff. He hadn't moved out at all. He'd moved Leah in. I hung up with Mark, hands trembling, and called my lawyer Sarah. She listened quietly, then let out a slow whistle. "Oh, she didn't." Sarah muttered, "That's an illegal sublet, Hannah. And worse, if Leah's living there, she's established residency. The police won't intervene without a court order. You'll need to start a formal eviction." It felt surreal, like falling into a trap I hadn't even known was set. Leah refused to answer the door for the process server. It took 3 attempts before the notice could even be posted and certified as delivered. Days bled into weeks while Mark and Sarah, the young couple who had trusted me, were stuck paying rent for a place they couldn't live in. I covered their hotel costs. My sense of responsibility wouldn't let me do otherwise, but every bill was like a new cut draining me dry. Arthur's cowardice was costing me thousands again. And then came the emails. Victor wrote first, his words dripping with righteous indignation. "I hear you're trying to evict my niece who is only protecting Arthur's belongings. Your harassment of our family has gone too far. Our lawyer has informed us we have a strong case against you for emotional and financial damages inflicted on Arthur." I almost dropped my laptop from laughing. Emotional damages. From a man who ended an engagement via text, but Sarah's advice was firm. Don't respond. Every message they send you is evidence. Let them bury themselves. So I stayed silent, and the silence made me dangerous, because while they schemed, Sarah dug deeper. One evening, she called, her voice alight with the thrill of discovery. "Hannah, you'll want to see this. Leah's social media, she's been bragging about her new apartment. She even posted screenshots of a text exchange with Arthur. He agreed to let her stay there for $500, cash a month under the table. Keep it on the down low," his words. My chest went hot fury, pulsing in waves. Arthur hadn't just abandoned me, he was profiting off my pain. Renting out an apartment he no longer even had the legal right to. I saved the screenshots, every post, every word. Proof. And for the first time in weeks, the fear in my stomach gave way to something sharper. Resolve. Arthur thought he'd trapped me in his mess, but all he'd done was hand me the rope to hang him with. I used to think heartbreak was the worst pain a person could endure. I was wrong. Heartbreak is sharp, fast. It cuts you open in one clean strike. What Arthur and his family were doing to me now was a slow grind. 1,000 paper cuts that bled me dry. Every day was a new email, a new demand. Victor's tone shifted from condescending to openly hostile. "Arthur deserves financial assistance while he looks for a new place. You left him with nothing. If you refuse, we'll see you in court." Then another. "Cease your harassment of Leah. She is safeguarding Arthur's things. Your unlawful actions are causing immense stress to our family." I read them once, saved them into the folder labeled Arthur plus Victor, and let them rot there like spoiled fruit. Meanwhile, Leah dug her heels deeper into my apartment. She ignored the quit notice. She ignored the follow-ups. She posted online about how her new landlord was a flake and how she had scored the best deal in the city. I wanted to scream, to storm into the apartment and drag her out by the wrist. But Sarah's words echoed like a mantra. Do not contact them. Do not give them the ammunition they want. This is now a legal matter. So I bit my tongue and wrote checks instead, checks for Mark and Sarah's hotel, for Sarah's legal fees, for court filing costs. Every dollar felt like a stone piled on my chest. But then Sarah called one evening, her tone sharp with restrained triumph. "Hannah, we've got them." She'd found Leah's private posts, photos of the apartment, captions bragging about paying only $500 a month, and the clincher, a screenshot of Arthur's text. "Stay as long as you want. Just keep it on the down low." The words hit me like a punch. Confirmation of what I'd suspected all along. This wasn't incompetence. It was collusion. Sarah's voice broke through my rage. "This is rental fraud, Hannah. He had no legal right to sublet. They've buried themselves." For the first time in weeks, I exhaled without my chest aching. Hard, undeniable proof. But relief didn't erase exhaustion. Nights stretched long, filled with whispered thoughts that clawed at me in the dark. You loved him once. You built a future with him. How did it come to this? How did the man who once promised forever become the man scheming to bleed you dry? Sometimes when I closed my eyes, I'd still see him as he was laughing with me over burnt pancakes, holding my hand on late walks, whispering plans for the life we'd never live. And then I'd see the text again. 7 words that reduced me from partner to problem. I wanted to hate him. God, I wanted it to be that simple. But what I felt was worse, grief tangled with fury. A love story curdled into a war. The court date loomed each day, dragging me closer. I couldn't stop replaying how it would go, what Arthur would say, what Victor would accuse me of, what Leah would claim. But beneath all the fear and fatigue, a quiet steel had settled inside me. They thought they could crush me with entitlement and threats. They thought silence meant weakness. But I wasn't breaking. I was gathering. And soon, in a courtroom under harsh fluorescent lights, all their schemes would be dragged into the open. The maze was almost over. And at the end of it, a reckoning waited. The courthouse smelled faintly of disinfectant and stale coffee. My palms were damp against the manila folder Sarah had instructed me to carry. Inside it, months of emails, invoices, certified letters, and most damning of all, the screenshots of Arthur's deal with Leah. When we walked into the courtroom, Leah was already there, slouched in her chair like a sulking teenager. Arthur sat behind her shoulders, rigid, avoiding my eyes. Victor was next to him, muttering furiously under his breath like a coach, psyching up his star player. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize Arthur. His once soft features were hard and defensive. The man I had once imagined growing old with looked like a stranger caught in a lie. The judge entered. We all rose. My pulse thundered in my ears. Sarah spoke first, calm, precise. She laid out the facts like beads on a string. The valid lease with Mark and Sarah, the eviction notice properly served, the hotel bills I had been covering, the evidence of Leah's social media posts. Finally, she held up the certified copy of Arthur's text conversation with Leah. Stay as long as you want. Just keep it on the down low. The words echoed in the quiet courtroom like a gunshot. The judge's eyes lifted sharp as glass. Mr. Harlow, she addressed Arthur directly. Did you or did you not authorize your cousin to live in this apartment after your lease was terminated? Arthur's mouth opened, closed. He stammered, I was just trying to help her. By committing fraud, Sarah cut in smoothly. The silence that followed was devastating. Leah's eyes darted to Arthur, betrayal flickering in her face. Victor's jaw clenched so tightly, I thought his teeth might crack. The judge's voice dropped to a dangerous softness. This court finds that Ms. Troutman acted within her rights as the legal tenant. The unlawful detainer is granted. Effective immediately, Leah Harlow must vacate the premises. Leah let out a strangled what, but the gavel had already fallen. And furthermore, the judge continued, given the documented expenses incurred by Ms. Troutman, the hotel bills, attorney fees, and court costs, the court orders Arthur Harlow to reimburse her in full. The number Sarah had calculated was higher than even the wedding deposits I'd lost. My breath caught. It was just as cold and sharp. Across the aisle, Arthur's face crumbled, not with regret, but resentment. His glare cut into me as though I'd betrayed him, as though his lies and schemes weren't the reason we were standing in this room. Victor muttered something to him, ushering him out, their defeat trailing like smoke. Leah followed, arms crossed, fury written across her face, and then they were gone. I sat very still, my hands folded in my lap. I had imagined this moment would feel like triumph, a grand slam of vindication. Instead, it felt quiet, heavy. Winning didn't bring joy. It brought release. When Sarah touched my shoulder and whispered, "You did it," I realized my hands weren't shaking anymore. For the first time in months, I was steady. As we stepped out of the courthouse into the sunlight, I thought of the 7 words that had shattered my life. I'm not in love with you anymore. For the first time, they didn't sting. They sounded irrelevant, because whatever Arthur felt or claimed not to feel no longer had power over me. After the courtroom, I expected my life to snap back into place like a bone reset after a fracture. But healing is an instant. It's slow, tender, and sometimes achingly quiet. I moved into a new apartment across town, smaller, simpler. I sold most of the furniture I'd put in storage, unwilling to drag remnants of my old life into this one. Every empty corner was a reminder that I was starting from scratch, and for the first time, that didn't scare me. Roger, my brother, my anchor, took me on a weekend trip to the mountains. We hiked until our lungs burned, drank cheap wine under the stars, and sat in silence that felt sacred. On the last night, he nudged me and said, "You look lighter, Lena, like you finally set something down." Maybe I had. Weeks blurred into months. My life took on a new rhythm. Work solitude evenings, where the quiet didn't feel like punishment, but peace. I stopped checking my Arthur folder. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. Then one morning, I got the email. Congratulations, your listing has sold. The dress. After nearly 5 months, someone had bought it. A week later, a letter arrived at my new address. A handwritten card, the kind people rarely send anymore. The return address read, Amanda. Inside was a photograph. A radiant woman in the very dress I had once chosen, standing on a beach with her husband, laughter caught in the wind. Her words were simple. Anna, I don't know the story behind this gown, only that it was meant for a future that didn't happen. I wanted you to see the future it found. Thank you. I sat there staring at the photo until my vision blurred. That gown had once symbolized betrayal, loss, humiliation. Now it symbolized joy for someone else. Yes, but joy all the same. And I realized something as I traced the outline of Amanda's smile with my thumb. Arthur's betrayal had shaped me, but it did not define me. I had chosen again and again not to be malicious, but methodical. Not to destroy, but to rebuild. Her actions, his cowardice, Victor's venom, they were chapters, but not the book.